The yacht rocked like a broken toy in the hands of a giant. The sea off the Brazilian northeast, which hours before had seemed like a turquoise mirror, now spat out black waves that crashed against the luxurious hull like clenched fists. Lara Mendes gripped the stern railing so tightly that her knuckles ached. 4 years, 4 damned years rebuilding her life far from him, and fate, or his family's dirty money, had thrown her back onto the same boat, literally. She didn't want to be there. The invitation to the family reconciliation cruise had smelled like a trap from the very first email, but refusing would mean admitting that Victor Kane still had power over her, and Lara had sworn, the day he disappeared from the altar, that she would never give him that satisfaction again. If you enjoy intense stories like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and help our channel grow and reach 1,000 subscribers, because the hunt that began in the past has just turned an entire island into a cage. The biting wind ripped tears from her eyes, but they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of pure hatred. The main cabin door slammed open. Victor emerged, his white shirt clinging to his wet body, dark hair plastered to his forehead, his black eyes fixed on her, as if the 4 years had never passed. He was taller than she remembered, more dangerous. His expensive suit had been replaced by casual clothes, but his air of being the master of the world remained the same. Lara. His voice cut through the howling wind, deep, controlled, as if they were in a meeting room and not about to sink. Come in, now, she laughed. A broken, bitter sound, almost carried away by the wind. Get out of my way, Victor. I'd rather drown alone than accept anything from you. The deck tilted violently. A larger wave swept over the stern, soaking them both to the bone. Lara slipped. Her instinct was to grab the railing, but the sea had other plans. Victor moved faster than he should have. In 2 long strides he reached her, his strong arm encircling her waist, pulling her against his chest. His body was a warm, solid wall, smelling of salt, expensive cologne, and something darker, something that still made her stomach clench treacherously. Don't you dare touch me as if you still have the right, she spat, pushing against his chest. Her hands trembled, but not from cold. He didn't let go. His fingers sank into the curve of her waist, possessively, as if the sea could steal her away at any second. His nose brushed against her wet hair, his warm breath against her ear. You're still mine, Lara, even if I hate to admit it, and I'm not going to lose you twice. The yacht groaned, wood and metal protesting. A deafening roar came from the bow. Lights flickered and went out. The world turned sideways. Lara felt the ground disappear. The last thing she saw was Victor's arm trying to hold her as they were both thrown into the Black Sea. The water swallowed everything. When Lara opened her eyes, the sun was mercilessly burning. Hot sand clung to her wet skin, her mouth, her eyelashes. Every muscle ached, her head throbbed. She coughed, spitting out salt water, and tried to stand. Her body wouldn't obey properly. The long dress she had worn to the party was now a torn rag clinging to her thighs, and then she saw him. Victor was a few meters away, lying on his side, his shirt open, revealing his chest rising and falling with difficulty. A nasty cut was bleeding on his forehead, but he was alive. Damn it, he was alive. Hatred surged like bile. Lara crawled toward him, her knees sinking into the sand. Her hands trembled as she pushed him away forcefully. Wake up, you bastard. The voice came out hoarse, broken. Wake up so I can kill you with my own hands. Victor opened his eyes slowly. Those dark eyes focused on her with a frightening clarity, even though he was dazed. A corner of his mouth curved. It wasn't a smile. It was something darker. Recognition, possession, still angry, princess. His voice was low, drawn out with pain, but the tone was the same as always, controlled, provocative. Lara knelt beside him, her fists clenched, angry. I hate you, Victor. You left me at the altar like I was trash. 4 years without a word, without an explanation, and now you show up on the same yacht as me? What do you want? To finish the job. He sat up slowly, ignoring the obvious pain in his shoulder. His hand shot out and gripped her wrist before she could recoil. The touch burned, skin against skin. Wet, alive. His thumb pressed against her pulse point, feeling her racing heart. I never wanted to leave you. His voice dropped, almost a growl, but you never understood why. Understand? She tugged at his arm, but he wouldn't let go. Their bodies were too close. His scent, salt, sweat, that damned sandalwood, filled her nostrils. You destroyed everything. I rebuilt my life far away from you, and now we're stuck on this damn island because the universe decided to punish me. The sea lapped calmly behind them, almost mockingly. The beach stretched empty on both sides, white sand, gnarled palm trees, cliffs in the background covered in dense vegetation. No sign of civilization, no boats, just them. Victor finally released her wrist, but didn't pull back. He leaned forward, encroaching on her space until his nose almost touched hers. The warmth of his body contrasted with the cold that still shivered on her skin. Look around, Lara. There's no rescue, there's no signal, there's no escape. His voice was low, dangerous, laden with something that went far beyond survival. It seems fate has decided to lock us in here, together, and this time I won't let you get away. Lara felt the air disappear. Hatred and something darker, hotter, mingled in her chest. She pushed his chest hard, but her body betrayed her. Her fingers lingered a second longer on his warm skin. So let's see who survives longer, Victor, because I'd rather die of hunger and thirst than owe you a single second of my life. He smiled, a slow, predatory smile that made her stomach churn. Let's see, princess. The hunt has only just begun. The sun was too high. Thirst already burned Lara's throat like dry fire. She walked along the shoreline, her bare feet sinking into the hot sand, her eyes scanning the empty horizon. Victor followed a few meters behind, limping slightly from his injured shoulder, but without complaining. The silence between them was worse than any scream. She stopped suddenly and turned around. "Stop following me around like a dog." He stopped too. His open shirt fluttered in the wind, his chest marked with scratches from the shipwreck. His eyes didn't waver. "I'm not following you. I'm protecting you. There's a difference." "Protecting me?" She laughed bitterly. "You abandoned me on the most important day of my life. And now you want to protect me? You're ridiculous." He took a step, then another, slowly, deliberately. The sand crunched beneath his wet boots. Lara backed up until her back met the rough trunk of a leaning palm tree. There was nowhere to run. Victor stopped inches from her. His body blocked the sun, creating a cool shade over her face. His hand moved up slowly, as if expecting her to bite, and brushed away a wet strand of her hair that clung to her cheek. The touch was rough, warm, possessive. "Do you think I wanted to leave?" His voice came out hoarse, almost broken. "Do you think I didn't die a little each day away from you?" His scent permeated everything, salt, sweat, the faint trace of cologne that had survived the sea. His chest rose and fell too close to hers. Lara felt her body react despite her hatred, her nipples hardening against the wet fabric, heat rising in her belly. "Don't you dare pretend you feel anything," she whispered, but her voice faltered. He leaned in closer. His lips brushed her ear, his warm breath sending shivers down her spine. "I feel everything, Lara. I always have. And now that the world has thrown us here, I'm not going to pretend anymore." The wind shifted. A distant sound of breaking branches came from the woods behind them. Something was moving. Victor tensed, his body instinctively turning to protect hers. His gaze darkened. "Stay behind me." Lara wanted to protest, but her survival instinct prevailed. For now. They didn't know it yet, but the island had just decided that his secrets wouldn't stay buried forever. Night fell upon the island like a sentence. The sun that had burned during the day disappeared behind the cliffs, taking with it what little warmth remained. The sea wind blew cold now, cutting, seeping into Lara's wet clothes and making her teeth chatter. They had walked all day along the shoreline, searching for any sign of life. A distant boat, an antenna, anything, nothing. Only dense vegetation, sharp rocks, and the constant sound of waves crashing like the laughter of a predator. Lara huddled against the trunk of a fallen palm tree, her arms crossed over her chest, trying to conserve what little warmth remained in her body. The hatred still burned in her chest, but the cold was more cruel. Victor was a few meters away, gathering dry branches with precise movements, as if he had already survived 1,000 such islands. He wasn't trembling, of course not. The wretch seemed made of stone. "We need fire," he said in a low voice, without asking permission, "and shelter. The temperature is going to drop even more." Lara laughed, a dry sound that stung her parched throat. "Us? There is no us, Victor. You left me at the altar, remember? alone, with everyone watching. Now you want to play the protective husband? He stopped, branches in his large hands, and turned his whole body towards her. His open shirt revealed his chest scarred by the scratches from the shipwreck. His dark eyes gleamed in the dim light, possessive, hungry. I remember every second, and you remember too. The way you looked at me on our engagement day, the way your body trembled when I kissed your neck. He took a step, then another. The sand crunched beneath his feet. Stop pretending the cold is the only problem here. The verbal confrontation cut through the air. Lara stood up, ignoring the pain in her injured feet, and invaded his space first this time. Her chest pressed against his. The heat of his body pierced the thin fabric of her torn dress like a mark. You have no right to speak of the past. You destroyed it. Her voice was hoarse but firm. And now we are trapped in this cage of sand and sea because the universe decided to punish me with your presence. Victor didn't back down. On the contrary, his hand slowly moved up and grasped the nape of her neck, his fingers digging into her wet hair, pulling her face upwards. It wasn't a caress, it was a current. His thumb pressed the sensitive spot behind her ear, feeling her accelerated pulse. Look at me, Lara. His warm breath brushed against her lips, a scent of salt and sweat mixed with the sandalwood that had survived the sea. The cold is killing you. My body isn't, and yours is already betraying you. He pulled her against his chest, their bodies pressed together, skin against damp skin, his thighs nestled between hers, pinning her against the fallen palm tree. Lara felt his heat wash over her, his broad chest rising and falling, his heart pounding against her breasts, his growing hardness pressing against her hips through her wet pants. A violent shiver ran down her spine, mixing hatred and desire into a knot that tightened her belly. "Let me go," she whispered, but her treacherous hands gripped his shirt instead of pushing him away. Victor lowered his head. His lips brushed her ear, his voice hoarse like a growl. "I'll let you go when you stop trembling, and when you admit you still feel it." He slid his free hand along the curve of her waist, squeezing the soft flesh, marking his territory. 4 years, Lara. 4 years I held back. Now the island has decided for us. The wind howled harder. The first drop of rain fell, icy cold. They were trapped there, body against body, and the past, the engagement, the promises, the abandonment, came back like a crashing wave. But Victor didn't let go, and Lara, for the first time, didn't fight with all her might. Morning arrived cruelly, the scorching sun returning the warmth the night had stolen. Lara woke with aching body, leaning against Victor's chest. They had slept like that, intertwined out of necessity, not choice. His arm was still heavy around her waist, possessive even in sleep. She slowly pulled away, her heart racing, hating the emptiness his warmth had left behind. Victor opened his eyes instantly, no trace of sleep, only that calculating coldness mixed with the fire he no longer hid. "Let's explore the island," he said, rising as if the previous night hadn't existed. "There has to be fresh water somewhere, and food." Lara stood up as well, ignoring the throbbing pain in her twisted ankle. The torn dress barely covered her thighs. She felt exposed, vulnerable, trapped. "I'm going alone. I don't need a guide." "Don't be stupid." His voice dropped, dangerously. "This forest isn't an amusement park. It has cliffs, animals, natural traps. Do you want to die to punish me?" They walked side by side, the verbal confrontation exploding with every step. The dense forest swallowed the light, roots twisted like fingers trying to hold their feet. The air smelled of damp earth, rotting leaves, and the salt of the distant sea. "Why did you leave?" Lara spat suddenly, stopping in the middle of a clearing. "On the wedding day, no letter, no phone call, just vanished like a coward." Victor stopped too. Sweat trickled down his chest, glistening in the light filtering through the leaves. He approached, encroaching on her space until the rough trunk of a tree trapped her back. His hand pressed against the wood beside her head, trapping her. "I left to save you, Lara." His voice was hoarse, heavy with what sounded like genuine pain. "There were people who wanted to destroy me, people who were going to use you against me. I preferred to lose you than to see you dead." "Lies," she whispered, but her eyes welled up with tears. His body was too close. His scent permeated everything. "You left me alone in my wedding dress with a broken heart." He lowered his face. His nose brushed against hers. Their lips hovered within millimeters. "I watched you from afar, every day, every contract you signed, every night you cried. I was there, in the shadows. Because loving you was too dangerous. His free hand moved down to her waist, squeezing, pulling her hips against his. But now there are no more shadows, just us, and I won't pretend anymore. The touch burned. Lara felt her body react, heat rising between her legs, desire betraying hatred. She pushed against his chest, but her fingers closed on his shirt, pulling instead of pushing away. "I hate you," she said, her voice faltering. "Great," he smiled, predatorily. "Hate is just passion that hasn't yet admitted it wants me." The exploration continued, but the atmosphere between them had changed. The island was no longer just a prison, it was a cage, and the hunt was becoming too intimate. The sun was already setting when they returned to the beach with their arms full of dry branches and broad leaves. Hunger gripped Lara's stomach like a claw. Thirst burned in her throat. Victor threw the load on the ground and began arranging stones for a makeshift fire. His hands worked with military precision, as if he had done this 1,000 times. Lara watched, arms crossed, still resisting. "A fragile alliance, isn't it?" she teased. "I'm only helping because I don't want to die, not because I trust you." He raised his eyes, that dark smile curving his lips. "You don't need to trust me. You just need to survive with me." He picked up 2 stones and began to bang them together, sparks flying. "And admit that my body is still the only one that makes you feel alive." Sexual tension grew as they built the shelter. Crossed branches formed a minimal structure against the wind. Broad leaves served as an improvised roof. His body brushed against hers with every movement, arm against arm, hip against hip. Each touch was electric. When the fire finally caught, crackling low, Victor sat down beside her near the flames. The heat danced on both their faces. He reached out and pulled her closer, ignoring her initial resistance. "Stay still," he murmured against her hair. "It's going to be a cold night again, and this time I'm not going to pretend I don't want to touch you." Lara felt his chest against her back, his strong arm encircling her waist. His hand flat on her stomach, his thumb tracing slow circles over the torn fabric. Her body betrayed her once more, a shiver of desire mixed with hatred. "That doesn't change anything," she whispered. "Everything changes," he replied, his lips brushing the curve of her neck. "Because now you know the secret, and I'm not going to let you get away anymore." The storm arrived without warning, like everything else on that cursed island. The sky, once a cruel blue, darkened in minutes. Black clouds swirled above the cliffs, and the wind howled through the palm trees like a living lament. Lara and Victor ran back to their makeshift shelter, branches and leaves flying around them. The rain started lightly, then heavily, turning the sand into mud that sucked at their feet. They threw themselves into the structure of branches and leaves. The space was minimal, their bodies pressed together out of necessity. Victor pulled her against his chest, his strong arm encircling her waist, protecting her from the wind that seeped through the cracks. "Stay still," he murmured against her wet hair. "The storm will pass." Lara was trembling, not just from the cold. His body radiated warmth, solid and alive. His open shirt clung to his skin, revealing his chest rising and falling rapidly. She felt each of his breaths against the nape of her neck, his heart pounding against her back. "Don't touch me as if it were still your right," she whispered, her voice hoarse with exhaustion and something deeper. Victor didn't let go. On the contrary, his hand slid possessively along the curve of her waist, his fingers pressing against her damp skin through the torn fabric. The touch was warm, firm, sending shivers that weren't from the cold. "I never stopped feeling that you were mine," he said, his voice low and deep, laden with a vulnerability she had never seen before. "Not even when I left, not in any of the days that followed." The wind howled louder. A lightning bolt ripped across the sky, illuminating his face for a second. Lara saw something new there, raw pain, guilt he hid behind his coldness. His chest tightened against hers. His breathing became uneven. "I watched you from afar, Lara, every night. I knew when you cried. I knew when you rebuilt your life without me, and that destroyed me inside." His hand moved up slowly, tracing the line of her spine, marking each vertebra as if he wanted to etch his presence onto her skin. Her body betrayed her. A liquid heat gathered in her belly, mixing ancient anger with forbidden desire. "Why?" she asked, her voice faltering. "Why leave me alone if it hurt so much?" Victor lowered his face, his forehead touching hers, his nose brushed against hers. Their lips hovered a breath away. Because loving you was too dangerous, and I preferred to lose you than to see you broken because of me. The storm raged outside, but inside the shelter, the world was just them, body against body, past against present. And for the first time, his vulnerability cracked the icy armor Lara had built around her heart. The rain stopped at dawn, leaving the island wet and glistening. Lara woke up with aching skin, still trapped in Victor's embrace. She moved slowly, trying to escape his warmth, but her ankle throbbed violently. The injury from the shipwreck had worsened overnight. Victor woke up instantly, his dark eyes focused on her with an intensity that made the air vibrate. "Let me see that," he said, his voice hoarse with sleep but firm. Before she could protest, he knelt down, his large hands grasping her ankle with surprising care. His fingers pressed against the swollen skin, assessing it. The touch burned, sending waves of heat through her leg. "It's getting infected. We need to clean it." He carried her in his arms to a small freshwater spring they had discovered the day before. The path was treacherous, exposed roots, slippery rocks. Lara clung to his neck, hating the comfort his body offered. Suddenly a noise, a dry crack. Victor stopped, his eyes narrowed. "Be quiet." A wild boar emerged from the woods, its eyes red with hunger, its tusks gleaming. The animal charged straight for them, drawn by the smell of blood from her wound. Victor acted without hesitation. He placed her on the ground with a quick but gentle movement, positioning his body in front of her as a living shield. The boar attacked. Victor spun, using his body weight to deflect the attack. His hand gripped a thick, fallen branch, striking the animal on the head with precise force. The boar recoiled, growling, but Victor gave it no room to maneuver. He advanced, his body tense, his defined muscles glistening with sweat and residual rain. The confrontation was brutal and swift. Victor brought the animal down with a final blow, panting, his chest rising and falling. Lara was paralyzed. He turned to her, his eyes darkened by adrenaline and something more primal. In 2 steps he was back, kneeling in front of her. His hands, still dirty with earth and exertion, cupped her face. "Are you okay?" His voice came out hoarse, genuinely worried. He pulled her close, embracing her tightly. His body trembled slightly against hers, not from fear, but from relief. The invasion of space was complete, his broad chest pressing against her breasts, his thighs fitting between hers, his hands sliding down to her waist, squeezing as if he would never let go. "I won't lose you again," he murmured against her hair. "Not to the sea, not to this island, not to anything." Lara felt his heart pounding wildly against hers. His scent, earth, sweat, raw protection, pervaded everything. Her body responded, despite her mind, a shiver of desire mixed with the fear that had just passed. For the first time, she didn't push him away. She simply let him hold her, as if the predator had just saved its prey, and the prey was beginning to understand why. The afternoon brought a heavy silence. They returned to the shelter, Lara's ankle clean and wrapped with broad leaves that Victor had improvised as a bandage. The sun filtered through the leaves, painting his body in golden hues. He sat beside her, shoulders touching, his warmth still lingering. Lara broke the silence first. "You said you left me to save me. Explain that properly, Victor. No beating around the bush." He remained still for a long moment. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining with possessive force. His thumb traced slow circles on her palm, sending sparks across her skin. "There were people who wanted to destroy me, rivals of my empire. They knew you were my weakness. They threatened to use you against me. Photos, plans. I received the proof 2 days before the wedding." His voice fell, filled with a pain he had never shown before. "I saw what they would do to you. I'd rather break your heart than see you truly broken. I disappeared to protect you, and I've paid for it every day since." Lara felt the air leave her breath. Her eyes welled up with tears. The secret he had kept for 4 years now hung between them, heavy and real. Victor turned to her, invading her space once more. His free hand cupped her chin, lifting her face. His lips brushed against hers, not in a kiss, but in a promise. "I watched over you the whole time, from afar, because loving you was dangerous, but losing you was worse. Now, on this island, there are no more external threats, just us." His body moved closer, his chest pressed against hers. Heat radiated from them, a mixture of vulnerability and restrained desire. I told you part of the truth, Lara. The rest will come when you're ready to hear it. But know one thing, I never stopped wanting you, not for a second." The revelation hung in the air like the calm after the storm. Lara felt her heart crack, ancient hatred mingling with painful understanding. Her body betrayed her once more, leaning toward him, seeking the warmth he offered. The island was no longer just a prison. It was the place where ancient secrets were beginning to unleash something new, something dangerous, something inevitable. Hunger and exhaustion began to erode Lara's defenses like relentless waves crashing against cliffs. The day after the storm brought a suffocating heat that turned the island into a living oven. They had managed to find wild berries and fresh water, but her stomach still ached with emptiness. Her ankle throbbed less, thanks to his care, but her whole body bore the mark of the previous night, his warmth still clinging to her skin. Victor watched her every move with eyes that no longer hid anything. He sat at the entrance to the shelter, his bare chest glistening with sweat, his muscles tense from hunting small crustaceans at the water's edge. The silence between them was heavy, electric. "You're trembling again," he said, his voice low and deep, rising slowly. "It's not just from hunger." Lara crossed her arms over her chest, trying to ignore the way his gaze roamed over her body. The desire she had struggled to deny since the shipwreck now pulsed strongly, treacherously. "Don't come around as if you know how I feel." He took a step, then another. The hot sand crunched beneath his feet. The verbal confrontation came sharp, but without shouting, just raw truth. "I know exactly how you feel, Lara, because I feel the same. 4 years keeping this inside me. And now, on this island, there's nowhere left to hide." The invasion of space was inevitable. Victor stopped inches from her, his broad body blocking the sun, a shadow falling on her face. His hand moved up slowly, fingers tracing the line of her jaw, his thumb pressing the sensitive spot below her ear. The touch burned. His chest brushed against hers, heat radiating through the thin fabric. "Look at me," he murmured, his nose brushing against hers, his warm breath mingling with hers. "Stop fighting it." Her body betrayed her. Her lips parted slightly, her heart racing. Victor leaned in, his mouth hovering just before her sigh, his hand sliding down to her waist, squeezing possessively. Desire exploded, hot, urgent. She felt his hardness against her hip, his heavy breathing. For a second, their bodies pressed together completely, thighs intertwining, her hands rising to his chest without pushing, almost surrender. His lips brushed hers, lightly, provocatively. But a distant noise in the woods, breaking branches, interrupted them. Victor tensed, instinctively protecting her with his body. "It's not over yet," he whispered against her mouth, his eyes dark with promise. "The hunt is only just beginning." Exhaustion and hunger turned every gesture into pure friction. The following days were spent constantly searching for food and safer shelter. They walked side by side through the dense forest, their bodies sweaty, their breaths ragged. Ancient hatred clashed with the attraction that grew with each accidental touch. Lara stopped suddenly, leaning against a tree, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "This can't go on like this," she said, her voice hoarse. "You tell me half the truth and expect me to just fall for it?" Victor stopped in front of her, invading her space without asking. The physical confrontation came naturally, their bodies too close to ignore. His hand pressed against the tree beside her head, trapping her. "I told you what I could. The rest hurts more than you can imagine." Hate and attraction collided. She pushed against his chest, but her fingers closed into his warm skin, pulling instead of pushing away. He didn't recoil. On the contrary, his body pressed hers against the rough bark, his thigh fitting between hers, his hand sliding down to the curve of her waist, squeezing with controlled force. "Feel this, Lara," he murmured, his forehead resting against hers, their breaths mingling. "The hate, the desire, it's all here, and it's consuming us." The sexual tension was unbearable. Sweat dripped between them. His scent, earth, sea, man, overwhelmed her senses. Her hands moved up his shoulders, nails lightly marking his skin. He brushed his lips against her neck, not kissing, just feeling her quickened pulse. "I've wanted you since day one," he confessed, his voice low and intense, "and each day apart has only made that feeling stronger." Physical and emotional hunger exhausted them, but her body responded. A low moan escaped her as he pressed harder, hip to hip, almost surrender again. But exhaustion won. They pulled away breathless, their gazes locked, knowing the barrier was cracking. Night had brought a turning point. They sat near the fire, their bodies close together out of necessity. The silence was different now. Lara broke it first. "Tell the rest, Victor. Everything." He stood still for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the flames. Then he turned to her, his hand holding hers with gentle possessiveness. "My rivals weren't just making threats. They had proof. Photos of you. Detailed plans of how to use you to destroy me. I received everything 2 days before the wedding. And there was more, something I never told you." His voice faltered for the first time. He pulled her closer, hugging her against his chest, as if he needed the contact to continue. "I had an old debt to the world I built. A mistake that almost cost me everything. When they threatened you, I knew the only way to protect you was to disappear. I faked abandonment to take you out of the line of fire. But the price was high. I lost you, and I lost myself along with you." Lara felt the tears streaming down her face. Understanding came like a wave. The hatred dissolved into something deeper. Longing, regret, pure desire. "Why didn't you tell me before?" she whispered, her face buried in his chest. "Because loving you meant protecting you, even if it hurt." The emotional surrender was mutual. She lifted her face, her hands rising to his neck. Their lips met, not with fury, but with understanding. The kiss was slow, deep, full of years of repression. Bodies pressed together, hands exploring with reverence. The island witnessed the moment when predator and prey became one. Victor gently laid her down in the shelter, his body enveloping hers in protection and desire. They hadn't consummated their relationship yet. The night was one of emotional surrender, but the barrier had fallen. "I am yours," she murmured against his lips, "and you are mine." The complete secret bound them together. The surrender came smoothly, inevitably. The hunt was over. Now something new began. Night fell upon the island like a veil of dark velvet, laden with promises and secrets finally revealed. The fire crackled low in the center of the shelter, casting dancing shadows over the intertwined bodies of Lara and Victor. The air was heavy with the smell of burnt wood, sea salt, and the heat emanating from his skin. The understanding that had come with the full confession had broken the last barrier. No more hatred remained, only pure desire, accumulated over 4 years of absence. Victor pulled her close with a reverence that contrasted sharply with the possessiveness that had always shone in his eyes. His large hands cupped her face, his thumbs tracing the line of her trembling lips. Her body responded before her mind, a liquid warmth spreading through her belly, her legs instinctively opening to accommodate him. "I've waited so long," he murmured, his voice hoarse and deep, his forehead pressed against hers. "Now you're truly mine." The spark came with a kiss that began slow, deep, tongues meeting with a hunger that needed no words. His hand slid down her back, carefully lifting the torn fabric of her dress with possessive care, exposing her warm skin. Lara arched her body against his, her nails tracing light lines across his broad shoulders, feeling every tense muscle beneath her fingers. The final approach was a dance of deliberate touches. He laid her down on the soft leaves that lined the shelter, his body covering hers like a living blanket. His lips trailed down her neck, tracing a path of warm kisses that left fiery trails. His hand slid along the curve of her waist, squeezing the soft flesh of her thigh, gently parting it. His thumb grazed the sensitive skin of her inner thigh, slowly moving upwards, exploring with a patience that made her body tremble with anticipation. His heat pressed between her legs, stiff and throbbing, but he didn't advance, not yet. He simply let her feel, let her body silently plead. "Feel me, Lara," he whispered against her breast, his mouth closing around her hardened nipple, his tongue tracing slow circles. "I am yours. I always have been." The delivery came like a wave crashing against the cliff. When he finally joined her, it was with a fluid, deep movement, filling her completely. Lara let out a low moan, nails digging into his back, her body arching to receive him fully. The rhythm began slow, intense, each thrust a promise sealed in flesh. Their bodies moved in perfect synchronicity, skin against sweaty skin, breaths mingling, hearts beating in the same rhythm. The pleasure rose in layers, growing until it exploded in waves that made the world disappear. He held her tight, whispering against her lips that she was his, that the island, the sea, and destiny had united them forever. Then, in the silence that followed, they remained intertwined, his body still inside her, pulsing with the last vestiges of pleasure. Victor wrapped his arms around her, protecting her from the world as if nothing else existed. Lara rested her face against his chest, listening to the heart that beat only for her. The surrender was complete. The prey had chosen the cage, and the predator, for the first time, had surrendered as well. The next day brought a sound neither of them expected. A distant hum cut through the island's silence. A helicopter. Victor tensed beside her, his body protectively pressed against hers as they gazed at the sky. The rescue they had so longed for, or feared, was approaching. "They found us," he said, his voice low, his hand tightening around her waist with renewed possessiveness. But that doesn't change anything. Lara felt her heart clench. The real world was returning. His business, the life she had rebuilt, the threats that had once separated them. The helicopter circled the cliffs, lights flashing, descending slowly in search of a landing spot. "What if they separate us again?" she asked, turning to him, hands on her broad chest. Victor pulled her close, kissing her with an intensity that sealed promises. His body pressed hers against the hot sand, a complete invasion of space, as if he wanted to etch his presence onto her skin before the world interfered. "No one will separate us. I fought for 4 years to protect you. Now I fight to keep you." His hand slid down the curve of her back, squeezing, marking, "You are my anchor, Lara, and I am yours." The helicopter landed. Uniformed men disembarked, calling out names, offering water and blankets. But Victor didn't let go of her hand for a second. His gaze towards the rescuers was cold, calculating, the billionaire returning to command. Lara, beside him, felt the new strength that would be born on the island. The bond that survival had forged was stronger than any external threat. They were taken back to the mainland. But the price of freedom was clear. The world would see the couple reunited, but no one would understand the obsession that now bound them like an invisible chain. Months had passed since the rescue. Victor's mansion on the northeastern coast had become their new home, no longer a prison, but a chosen refuge. Lara walked along the balcony facing the sea, the gentle wind ruffling her hair. Victor watched her from the doorway, arms crossed, dark eyes gleaming with that possessiveness that would never again be hidden. "You could have gone back to your old life," he said, approaching from behind, his arms around her waist, his body pressed against hers. "But you chose to stay." She turned in his arms, her hands rising to his face, tracing the line of his jaw. "I chose you. The island showed me what the world tried to hide, the love that survives pain." The kiss that followed was deep, full of fulfilled promises. His body pulled her close, his hands possessively tracing her curves, as if reaffirming with each touch that she was his. The obsession had solidified. No more revenge or secrets, just a bond the world could never break. They faced curious stares, questions from the press, and the shadows of the past that still haunted his business dealings. But together, hand in hand, they were invincible. Prey and predator had found balance. The deserted island had united them. The real world would test them, and they would win. Because the fate that had locked them together would never let them go again. If you enjoyed this story, help our channel grow. Like and subscribe now, so as not to lose the next forbidden obsession.